A soldier of the British Royal Guard must never break his stance. This is rule number 1, repeated for generations. But that morning, in front of hundreds of shocked witnesses at Buckingham Palace, something made one of the kingdom's most disciplined guards take an action no one expected, and the entire world watched in silence. On a seemingly ordinary morning in London, the majestic Buckingham Palace would reveal a scene that no one expected to witness. The autumn sun bathed the golden walls of the royal residence as hundreds of visitors thronged the main gates, eager to witness the traditional changing of the guard. Among the imposing figures who protected the palace, William, a young soldier from the British Royal Guard, stood out. His posture was impeccable, as if he had been carved from marble. His meticulously aligned red and black uniform gleamed in the morning light, while his black fur hat towered majestically over his serene expression. The buzz of tourists mixed with the distant sound of Big Ben, creating the typical atmosphere of that world-famous tourist spot. Cameras clicked incessantly, capturing the solemnity of the moment. But on this particular morning, something extraordinary was about to happen. An encounter that would test the boundaries between tradition and disrespect, transforming a ceremonial routine into a tense moment that no one would forget. No one could have imagined that, within minutes, that peace would be shattered by a confrontation that would go viral on social media and raise questions about respect, limits, and the true nature of a royal guard's duty. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to have access to more stories like this. Of the hundreds of faces in the crowd, one figure stood out due to his proud posture and eye-catching clothing. Olivia, a middle-aged American tourist, sported a vibrant blue hat that clashed with the understated elegance of the royal setting. Her brightly colored printed dress seemed to scream for attention, as did her high-pitched voice that stood out amidst the respectful whispers of the other visitors. With a latest model cell phone in hand and a designer bag slung over her shoulder, she moved through the crowd as if the place were her private stage. His gestures were expansive, theatrical, typical of someone used to being the center of attention. Every comment she made was louder than necessary, as if she wanted to make sure everyone around her noticed her. The smile on his face was not one of genuine admiration for the history and tradition of the place, but rather that of someone who saw everything there as mere entertainment. His restless eyes sought not the architectural beauty of the palace or the solemnity of the occasion, but an opportunity to create his own spectacle. As he advanced among the tourists, his mocking comments about the guards' exaggerated rigidity began to attract disapproving looks. To Olivia, however, those expressions of disapproval seemed to only fuel her desire to provoke a reaction. She had paid dearly for that trip, as she made a point of mentioning out loud, and was determined to get what she considered to be her moment. The first contact began with an exaggerated wave. Olivia approached the restricted area, completely ignoring the security strips. "Hello, soldier. Why so serious?" she asked loudly, eliciting nervous laughter from some nearby tourists. With her cell phone in position, she began her little private show. "Guys, you won't believe what I'm about to do," he narrated to his virtual audience, getting closer and closer to guard William. Her camera focused insistently on the soldier's impassive face as she grimaced and posed at his side. "Is he real? He looks more like a wax doll," Olivia teased, turning to the crowd as if seeking approval. Some visitors began to walk away, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Others grabbed their cell phones, anticipating something was about to happen. The American continued her performance, pretending to imitate the guards' rigid posture. "Look how they look. They don't even blink. It must be a very boring job, right?" he commented in a mocking tone. William remained motionless, his eyes fixed on the horizon, although a slight tension could be noticed in his jaw. "Maybe he needs a little livening up at work," Olivia announced on her live stream, winking at the camera. The surrounding public watched apprehensively as she prepared to push the boundaries of what was acceptable even further. The movement around began to change. The sound of dozens of cell phones being switched on echoed through the palace courtyard as the crowd reorganized to capture every moment of the impending confrontation. Whispers in different languages mixed with the London wind, creating an atmosphere of growing apprehension. "She shouldn't do that," muttered a British lady to her husband, nervously clutching her purse. Children were pulled away by worried parents, while teenagers approached, eager to record the moment. The circle of spectators expanded, forming an improvised amphitheater around the scene. More experienced tourists tried to warn. "Madam, please respect the rules," shouted a man with an Australian accent. But his words were lost in the growing hubbub. Some Asian visitors, recognizing the danger of the situation, pointed to the warning signs posted on the palace railings. The tension in the air was palpable. Palace staff began to move discreetly, exchanging worried glances among themselves. A group of English students stopped their guided tour, all mesmerized by the Americans' audacity. "This is going to be a problem," commented one of them, already positioning his smartphone. From the other side of the courtyard, other guards observed the situation, maintaining their disciplined posture, but clearly attentive to the unfolding events. The audience, now completely engaged, alternated between expressions of shock, curiosity, and disapproval, knowing they were about to witness something extraordinary. The tension reached its peak when Olivia, completely absorbed in her digital performance, decided to cross the last frontier of respect. With a provocative smile plastered on her face, she stretched her hand towards William's meticulously tailored uniform. His fingers brushed against the scarlet-red fabric, while his other hand held tightly to his cell phone, determined to capture every second of his transgression. The crowd collectively held its breath. Time seemed to freeze at that moment, when she, not satisfied with touching her uniform, did the unthinkable. She lightly slapped the guard on the arm. The sound of the slap, although soft, echoed like thunder in the silence that had settled in the palace courtyard. "Come on, little soldier, this is all just theater," she provoked, her voice full of disdain echoing through the historic corridors. His eyes sparkled with a mixture of triumph and defiance, completely oblivious to the gravity of his actions. The cell phone in his hand continued recording, broadcasting his audacity to an ever-growing virtual audience. A smile of satisfaction grew on his face, as if he had just achieved some kind of personal victory. Olivia seemed unaware that she had just crossed not just a physical line, but also a centuries-old boundary of respect and tradition. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the wind seemed to have stopped blowing, as if nature itself was awaiting the inevitable consequence of that act of disrespect. It was then that the unthinkable happened. William's face, until then as impassive as a marble statue, came to life. In a precise, controlled movement worthy of his years of training, he took a step forward, breaking his static stance. The sound of his boot on ancient stone resounded like thunder through the silent courtyard. With a quick and firm movement, he pushed Olivia away, causing her to lose her balance and fall to the stone floor. His striking blue hat rolled a few meters, coming to rest at the feet of gaping tourists. The cell phone slipped from his hands, sliding across the palace's historic floor. "Ma'am," his deep, authoritative voice cut through the air like a sharp blade, "you have exceeded all permitted limits." Each word carried the weight of centuries of tradition and discipline. "This is not a show for your entertainment. I am a soldier in the British Royal Guard, and you have just committed a serious offense." William's posture emanated a natural authority that made everyone present instinctively straighten up. His eyes, once fixed on the horizon, now pierced Olivia's soul with an intensity that made the color drain from her face. The provocative smile she had been sporting seconds before had turned into an expression of shock and embarrassment. The echo of his words was still reverberating through the courtyard as other members of the palace security began to approach. The crowd, which seconds before had been filming everything in absolute silence, now began to murmur in approval of the guard's reaction. "How dare you push me?" Olivia shouted, trying to compose herself as she straightened her wrinkled dress. "I came from the United States to visit this place. I paid a fortune for this trip." His voice, once filled with mockery, now trembled with a mixture of indignation and embarrassment. Clumsily standing up, she began gesturing wildly to the crowd. "Did you see that? He attacked me. Is that any way to treat a tourist?" His face was red, no longer with amusement, but with growing anger as he tried to turn his humiliation into a perceived injustice. "This is a tourist spot, isn't it? You live off our money," she continued, now addressing William directly. "I want to speak to your supervisor immediately. You can't treat me like this just because I wanted to make a fun video." Some tourists began to boo his justifications, while others shouted words of support for the guard in different languages. Olivia, however, remained obstinate. "You guys get paid to just stand there. It's practically an amusement park. How absurd! I'm going to post this on all my social networks." Retrieving her cell phone from the floor, she tried to maintain her indignant posture, but her voice began to crack as she realized that no one there shared her perspective. This is an outrage. I'm going to sue. I'm going to make a formal complaint." It was at this moment that Arthur, the head of palace security, emerged from the crowd. With firm steps and a presence that exuded authority, he approached Olivia. "Ma'am, I need you to accompany me immediately." His voice was calm but adamant. His actions violated several security regulations at the royal palace. 2 other security guards strategically positioned themselves at her side, as Arthur explained. Touching a member of the royal guard is a serious offense, punishable by law. You have 2 options: withdraw voluntarily or face legal consequences. The audience, which moments before had been filming everything in silence, burst into applause. Smartphones captured every second of the outcome, as Olivia, now visibly smaller in her stance, picked up her hat from the floor. His attempt to maintain a pose of indignation crumbled with each step towards the exit. "It won't stay like this," she murmured, but her voice no longer carried the same conviction. Security guards firmly escorted her through the main gates as a fresh wave of applause echoed through the courtyard. Tourists of different nationalities approached William, making gestures of approval and respect. Social media exploded with video of the incident. In a matter of minutes, thousands of shares turned that moment into a global viral event. Comments flooded digital platforms, most celebrating the guard's dignified posture and condemning the American tourist's disrespectful behavior. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to have access to more stories like this. The sun was beginning to set over Buckingham Palace, staining its centuries-old walls with golden tones. William had resumed his position, as imposing and disciplined as before. That morning's incident, now viral on social media, had served as a powerful reminder of the true meaning of the British Royal Guard. In the days that followed, tourists passed by the place with a new look of respect. They no longer saw just men in colorful uniforms, but guardians of a centuries-old tradition. The photos continued, the smiles remained, but there was something different in the air. A deeper understanding of the privilege of being there. Comments on social media turned that moment into something bigger than a simple viral video. It became a lesson in respect, dignity, and the importance of preserving traditions. William's unwavering stance in the face of provocation was not just military discipline. It was a living testament to honor and duty. As the shadows lengthened across the royal courtyard, William remained at his post, silhouetted against the evening sky. His red uniform still shined, his bearing was still impeccable, but now he carried with him something more: the renewed admiration of people from all over the world, who finally understood that behind that apparent immobility beat the heart of a true guardian of British history. The palace's traditions would continue, as they have for centuries, but now with a new chapter in its rich history, one that would remind everyone that respect is not just a rule, but a demonstration of understanding for the inestimable value of the historical and cultural heritage that the Royal Guard so bravely protect.